What you need to do is completely finish this setting before you solder it on to your wire, because you can get to it quite easily now to work on it. Once it's soldered on, it's going to be impossible to do anything to it. So completely finish it with the exception of polishing it. So make sure all of the edges are well sanded, no irregular bits, and once you get that done, sand this top on your sandpaper the same way you did the base. Take your flat file and file at a 45-degree angle on the top edge of your bezel, because we want to thin it out just a little. Now, don't go to the point where you lose the top edge, because it'll be too thin. If you do this now, it'll be quite easy to tidy this up once it's soldered on and you set the stone. You can hallmark this now just by putting it in the pliers, giving it a bit of a squeeze. If you forget, you can, when you're completely finished, you can hallmark the hook. Now I've placed my setting in my jump ring. It's not quite where I'd planned to put it, except that this fits that full curve and it touches the other side. Now, the bezel needs to sit up enough higher that you have plenty of edge to push over the stone. This one does, so I can just sit it flat on a piece of charcoal, flex it, put my bits of solder here, here, and here, and solder it. If it's a low one, what you'd probably need to do is put this face down on your charcoal block, hold the wire with your third hand so that you can get the base so that it's right in the middle of the wire. But this one we don't need to do it that way. But saying that, anytime you have a choice, solder from the back, because it'll eliminate a lot of tidy up. If you make a small mistake on the back, it's no drama. If you solder this from the front, you really have to do precision soldering because it's difficult to clean up solder on wire. So I think I will solder it from the back. So you can see that I've got my bezel face down on a charcoal block with my third hand holding the wire in position. Now what I'll do is just flex this at the spots where I want to solder. Now I'm still using hard solder for this. I pretty much use hard solder for everything. Now 3 2mm long bits of solder. Place it with your flux brush, because that way it'll be fluxed. Everything needs to be fluxed when you solder. The difficult part is not to hit the block. Now we're just going to warm this until the flux dries out. Make sure that the solder is in the correct position before we heat everything up. And when you solder this one, the majority of your heat's going to have to be on the base, because the base is thicker than the wire. So when you get the flux so it's dry, you can reposition your solder using your solder pick if you keep the flux warm. If you let it cool off, it'll just stick in place. So now I'm just going from base to wire. look at the flux will go clear and the solder will flow. So those are three nice joins. I'll just stop at this point because there are plenty to hold the piece. If you're holding it in three spots, it's great. If you have it so that it's just in one spot that it's touching, use quite a bit of solder because you do need the strength. So once you've pulled the piece out of the pickle, have a really good look at it. Make sure that everything is wonderful. Now, what I didn't show you was my join is up here. Never solder onto your join if you can keep from it, because what happens is once the solder flows on whatever you're trying to solder it onto, it'll suck it out of the join and show the join. So anytime you have a choice, don't solder on the joins, solder away from it. So if it all looks wonderful, pickle it until the oxides are gone, and then put it in the tumbler for about 10 minutes. We don't want it in too long because it'll harden the edge of our bezel and make it difficult to push over, but we do want it polished because this is almost impossible to polish any other way. Okay, this one is finished and it's ready to set the stone, but don't. Do the rest of your links, your 3 feature links. You can do more if you want, but I'd like for you to do 3. And make your small jump rings. To link them together, use the same diameter wire, 1.5. And because it is 1.5, the inside diameter of your jump ring is going to have to be 3.5 so that you can get the 2 bits inside the jump ring, close it, and solder it without soldering it to this. So go ahead, do your other main links, feature links, connect it all together, tumble it, and then set the stones. And because you've used fine silver for the bezel, all you're going to have to do to set this is just sit it on your bench peg, drop your stone in, and just hold against it. Use your bezel rocker and just push against yourself and set the stone that way. It shouldn't take much cleanup because you've thinned the top edge of this, so it'll be quite easy to push it over against the stone. But the reason I want you to finish the necklace and tumble it before you set the stones is, depending on the stone, some stones won't tolerate being tumbled. This is iron pyrite. It's really pretty, but it's quite soft. Turquoise and malachite are both really soft and they don't like to be tumbled. So finish the thing completely, tumble it so it's nice and shiny, then set the stones. If you like this procedure, you could actually use this single piece as a pendant, which would mean just a jump ring, a single jump ring, and then your cord or your chain to hold it. But we want the multiple pieces for the original necklace. An asymmetrical link with a bezel set cabochon, solid back.